When it comes to growing your own food, I feel like no garden is complete without onions. Onions are one of those foods that is put in so much of our cooking. So why not grow it in the garden? Today I'm going to show you two different ways that I'm going to be starting onions from seed. I have two different onion varieties here from Territorial Seed Company. One is a red onion called Monastrell and the other is Patterson. And both of these are somewhat storage onions. A couple things to know about onions. When you look at onion packets, you will always see something that says long day, short day, or intermediate day varieties. This tells you if the onion will work in your location. Long day variety onions are onions that need long summer days to fully bulb. So this is areas like where I'm at in Washington State, we have very long summer days. But if you live closer to the equator, your days are a bit shorter, so you would want more of an intermediate or a short day variety. It's important to get the correct onions so that way you actually get a bulbing onion. The best time of year to plant onions is your coldest winter month. For me, that's January and February. And that is the best time to start planting your onion seeds because they have a very long growing season. Both of my varieties here, one is 104 days and the other is 110 days. That's late summer. Planting them now guarantees that you will actually have bulbing onions by the end of the season. So I have two different methods of how I'm starting my seeds this year. One, I'm using a very shallow container. Because onions don't have very long tap roots, they don't need very deep cells, so something like this works fine. Just make sure it has some holes on the bottom. And then the other option that I'm trying out is doing winter sowing with a jug. First step to any seed starting is getting a really good potting mix. I recommend potting mix compared to seed starting mix because potting mix will retain moisture a little bit better than the seed starting mix. And for good measure, I always like adding worm castings as some nutrition. This has compost in it, but I'm going to go ahead and add some vermicera worm castings to this. I'm not measuring. See the worm castings there. I'm going to add water to our mix here. This is so that when I put my seeds in, they'll come into immediate contact with moist soil and I don't have to water it right away, which could disturb the seeds before they're able to germinate. You want this to not be sopping wet, just a very nice even moisture. Seed starting mix, potting mix, they're all hydrophobic, which means that they repel water. So it can take a lot of water to finally get it to the correct moisture. You can see here, this is a nice even moisture. I can get a little water when I squeeze it hard, but it's easy to break up. Go ahead and put your potting mix in your container. I'm going to pat it down a bit. Onions do not need much heat to germinate, so do not put them on a heat mat. That will just stimulate too much growth too quickly, could burn them. In fact, here it says soil temp for germination 50 to 75 degrees. That's 50 degrees is not that much. That's why planting them this time of year, they do just great. I'm gonna do about 15 seeds or so. And then we're gonna top with a little more soil. I'm going to be placing this in a window that gets a lot of sunlight or under a grow light that is about 2 inches away from the soil. And as the onions sprout, you're always going to keep that grow light about 2 inches above those seedlings. Let's do winter sowing next. This I have not tried with onions yet, and so it's going to be new for me, but I know a lot of people have had great success, so I'm excited about this. Once again, we're going to add some soil. So as you can see, I have filled the soil about 1 inch from the top. If you want to learn more about winter sowing, I'm going to be doing a separate video on that later, but basically just make sure you have holes that you've cut in the bottom. You cut holes on the sides about 1 inch up, and then you just leave a handle when you cut this off, usually right around where the handle is. You leave a hinge rather, where you can open and shut this here and just get rid of the cap. Same thing, we're just going to scatter about, I'm going to do about 15-20 seeds in this mix. Yeah, once again, we're going to cover with soil. Just a very fine layer. They don't need to be buried very deep. And to finish off our winter sowing jug, we're going to tape this baby shut. This is by far the hardest part for me. Doesn't have to be pretty. Winter sowing is like creating a miniature greenhouse. We're going to be leaving this outside. The weather's supposed to get really cold, but I know that when the temperature of the soil in this container is perfect and ideal for the seeds to germinate, they will germinate. This hole is going to allow a little water in here. I'm going to check this once in a while, but I doubt I'm going to need to water it because of rainwater. This is a very low maintenance system. An easy way you can tell it's getting enough water is if there's condensation on the inside of your jug and if it feels heavy. If it feels light and there's no condensation, it's time to water. I'm going to leave this outside until probably about April, and then it'll be time to plant my onions into the garden. Check back later for a future video to see how all this turned out. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you in the next video. Go out and grow something. God bless.